Good afternoon. I'm Elaine Hall-Corbin, your host, and welcome to Artists of Color, a show that interviews and talks to and about artists from all mediums across Boston's communities of color. Thank you for joining us. And today, I happen to have the honor, and I mean the esteemed honor, of having my guest, Ms. Catherine Morris, who is the CEO and founder of Boston Art and Music Soul Festival. Catherine, better known as Cat to me, girl. Thank you.
You are welcome, Miss Elaine.
I got you here.
After years,
I
yes.
know. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
I'm glad.
I cannot complain.
I hear that one, girl. I hear that one. So,
Yes.
tell me. We're going to start with, who is Catherine Morris?
Catherine Morris is a child of Boston, born and raised in both Jamaica Plain and Roxbury. Raised by two parents who had a wallpapering and painting business here in Boston for 30 years. Grown in a house of 5 siblings, one who was a barber, who was an inspiration behind my work ethic. So that's me. I just want to bring people together, celebrate great music, great food, all the hidden gems that our city has to offer, but also just celebrate life. We have to do that more often.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
Absolutely.
We really do. I'm going to get right into it.
Go for it. I'm all for
going to
it.
get right into it. Tell us, what is BAMS? I call it BAMS because that's what I've known it as.
Everyone shortens it, but for those that don't know, BAM stands for Boston Art and Music Soul Fest, and it is a labor of love. It's a nonprofit organization that strives to break down racial and social barriers to arts and culture for underserved communities of color, and artists too. And we do that in a variety of ways. We do that through event curation. We're producing our first festival next year in June during National Black Music Appreciation Month.
When is that?
The whole month of June.
Oh, it is the whole month of June.
Absolutely.
So we taking up the whole month?
I'm working on 30 days.
Go ahead, girl. That's what we're going to do then.
And the other stuff that we do is we do panel discussions, conferences, and workshops for both the audience as well as our artists and musicians. So making sure that people are connecting first and networking last and learning about each other, because I think that's how we can understand each other's stories and experiences, and it's more relatable versus something you consume.
Okay. What do your workshops consist of? How are your workshops put together? What do you do in those workshops?
We do a variety of different topics, but it's really about observing people first, and that's how we really get a sense of what actually matters to people, particularly artists of color here in Boston of all ages. So we have done 2 master classes, one that is focused on how to look at being a spoken word artist, for example. We put a team or a group of spoken word artists in a room with entrepreneurs who pitched their business plan and talked about who tells their story better. And it's poets. But on the flip side of that, a lot of the spoken word artists that we found didn't view themselves as entrepreneurs, and they are. They're individuals, but they're sole entrepreneurs, but they're entrepreneurs. And so in this workshop, both parties were learning from each other about the techniques of presenting your idea in 90 seconds, 60 seconds, 20 seconds. And then for...
Like an elevator pitch.
Absolutely. But with the twist of poets have this interesting way of getting into character. They're not concerned about, winning big prizes. They're more concerned about getting the point across. That even if you've never gone through that experience, in that time frame, you've experienced that story.
Exactly.
Right? And so for poets, what they learned were the ins and outs or the steps of how to get started as an entrepreneur. Okay. Everything from prioritizing your taxes, which is always fun for artists.
Oh, yes, it is. Absolutely.
How to legalize your documents, how to read contracts, all of those things. So that was just like one.
That was just one workshop?
Just one.
Whoa.
We also do panel discussions, and last year we did one called Pulse, which was an exploration of Black masculinity, arts, music, and social change across Greater Boston. And we brought together 7 men of color under the age of 40 and looking at how they use their artistic medium to shatter stereotypes all while being Black men in the city, let alone having a target on their back no matter where they go.
By how they dress, how they look, where they're at.
Absolutely. And then we did the opposite. We did the female panel, and that was amazing.
Was it?
Absolutely.
Do you intend to do anything like that again?
Yes, we do. Actually, this September, we're going to repeat Pulse again, September 15th. We'll be at the Cobbin Square Black Box Theater. And this one will also have a music performance as the opener and setting the tone for the conversation, again, around the topic of Black masculinity, arts, music, and social change. And then in October, we're going to do the female panel, Souls of Women, at Zoomix in East Boston.
Where? Who?
Zoomix.
Where are they located at?
They are located on, I believe it's 26 Sumner Street in East Boston.
Oh, all right.
So we're doing those two events, and then we're doing our Courage of the Verb conference at the Lena Park Community Center.
Okay.
And that's focusing on artists, musicians, holistic health, and wellness.
Is that going to be an all-day event? Wow.
That is an all-day event, all-day conference, 5 different workshops, community resource fair. There's going to be a opportunity of a jam session, so if you want to come in and just start performing, you can. There's no barriers whatsoever.
I love that. I definitely want to be at that conference.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun.
Yes. Now, I want to back up a little bit. You talked about Boston Arts, Music, and Soul Festival. It's kind of like your baby, which I know it is. And it is.
It is.
All right.
It is. It is.
But why? What made you want to do that?
Came from a couple of things. As I mentioned, my parents and my brother of my 5 siblings, they are the muse for many of the things that I do. For those who ever drive past a painter on the summer painting a house, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of detail.
Oh, yes.
But they're artists. Mm-hmm. People may not ever imagine
them.
But the way that they prep their tools is the way that my father prepped his tools, how he chose a color palette, how he just created his whole foundation, contributed to my work ethic. My mom could have been a DJ if she wanted to. She has a collection of 300 vinyl records still to this day and can make a soundtrack like no one's business.
Really?
Yes, but there are pictures that she has of me with a set of headphones on the womb, being a kid and growing up, and so music has always been a part of my life. My brother, who was a barber, he was a doodler, so he would sketch things first and then take those designs and put them into someone's scalp, right? And so all that together growing up, I would attend festivals and concerts and shows and just see the impact, particularly in my community, of how just that one artist can either bring back good memories or spark new ones.
True.
And for me, what I've learned over the last couple of years is that there's been a deficit of venues, of performance platforms, of spaces, of creative opportunities for artists and for audiences to come together. Everything from Playhouse in the Park to White Stadium, Franklin Park Zoo, the many speakeasies and nightclubs and basement parties that I've grown to learn about from elders, all that has stopped.
I know.
And that has had a tremendous behavioral, spiritual, mental, physical, psychological impact, particularly on Black and brown bodies. And when I go to New Orleans or I go to Philadelphia or Detroit or California and see that no matter what, arts and music and culture is a lifestyle versus something to do here. I feel like it was a call to action for me to do something. And if I know any Black or brown person in my life, the 3 things that always bring folks together is food, music, and dancing. So why not activate or reactivate a green space in Boston that connects 3 major neighborhoods made up of people of color who can speak to its history of then, create new memories, but also bring their families.
There you go. There you go. You know, you said whatever, you talked about food, music, and just being out there. And it was funny because I thought about that when You were on the panel
Yes,
for the Black Arts Movement
absolutely.
panel. And you said that exact same phrase. And I said, I will never forget that. And I am going to remember that when we have this, when we get together on my show, and we're going to talk about that.
Absolutely.
Because you talked about talking to elders. How did you begin? Did you begin by talking to elders that you knew, or did you just begin to be introduced to elders who were back during that time and began to talk to them about what the life and music and arts was like back in the day?
I did a couple of things. I started with my family because
Okay.
they're the ones who could testify to what White Stadium was like when Earth, Wind, and Fire or
Yes.
George Clinton in Parliament came to those areas, or when Playhouse in the Park was at its prime of these different activities that would totally spark just an opportunity just to have fun. I started with my own family, and then from there, I got plenty of recommendation from them about who to talk to, who were the movers and shakers of their decade that are still around, that are still connecting, that are still trying to remain relevant and bring folks together.
Okay.
And then from there, it led me to folks like Valerie Stevens. It
There
led
you
me
go.
to folks like Diama Battle.
My mentors, my mamas.
Folks like Jackie Parker.
Yes, absolutely.
I started to learn more about Askia Toure, who I did not know, but
Oh.
now I'm reading more about him. And then also just going where my elders are going now and just asking questions about what was it like then when those concerts and shows happened and what has happened now. And I watched that there was a attitude change when they started talking about it's not the same anymore.
It's not.
And the fact that they feel like there's nowhere else they can go, that there's nothing to do in Boston, particularly for the Black and Brown experience.
Exactly.
And that they have to pack their bags and go somewhere else to enjoy a cultural destination. That totally rocked my world. And I said, okay.
That's where Boston Arts Music Soul Festival came in. Okay, so now I know where we're at. We have now come up to the present.
It's not just to do something, it's not just to do a festival. It really has to do with the racial inequities that have happened across the city, the segregation, the silos, that are both systematic, that are also an individual choice.
True.
And I refuse to settle for the fact that we have to do it continuously the same way because it's Boston. If Detroit can get out of their own way and put on music things or festival things, why can't we? If we are to be considered the top five, the hub of innovation, entrepreneurship, we should be putting that same effort towards arts and culture and music, particularly if we are known to be a minority-majority city.
Tell me about this.
Oh, that's one of my favorite events.
Well, tell us about that event.
This past March, we did an event called Need I Paint More? A exploration of social justice through live painting. Oh, it was deep. And we had
Did you paint?
No, I did not do finger colors. No, we actually did a call to artists, and we ended up getting 5 young people between the ages of 16 and 21, and they were given a social justice theme to paint within 75 minutes.
Wow.
Yes. 75 minutes, that's hard.
That is, and in that span of, whoa,
yes.
that span of time.
Absolutely.
And what did you find? Tell me what you saw.
So what was interesting is I realized from an artist's perspective, they allow their art to speak for themselves. But I always like to push the envelope. You know, it's more than just your artwork, it's about who you are. You know, every color you choose, every stroke that you use, the energy you bring into a space and how you decide to paint it is all your personality and your character and your foundation. And so it's extremely important for us during this event to get to know the artists. And because they're young people, made it much more interesting. So we asked them, what ended up happening was as the young folks were painting, the audience were given one index card, and they were allowed to write one question that they wanted to ask any of the artists of their choice.
Okay.
And then we used those questions to form a panel discussion.
Okay.
And it literally took an hour because it was so emotional.
Oh.
These young folks felt like it was the first time for them to have an opportunity to explain who they are. Because oftentimes they're just in the shadows. They're young people, they paint, that's great. But they have a story.
Yeah, they do.
And that story
They do.
matters. And particularly, there were certain social justice issues that these artists felt were truly, truly important to them. One was around climate change. One was around hip hop being perceived as a negative when it has such a global impact.
Which is true.
Another one had to deal with diversity and inclusion. There was a gentleman who, he was from Pakistan, but he was also Black American. And so his experience of being racially profiled and being bullied, just his whole artwork was amazing and how that came out. And then, if I can talk about that event too. This event was at JP Porch Fest last July. We did an event with 350 Music Group, Alyssa Jones, and what we did was we got together about 12 artists who never met before, and we did a jam session right in Eggleston Square at the Peace Garden.
I missed that. I'm only up the street.
We did it for an hour, and when I tell you we stopped traffic,
You stopped traffic.
we got the mailman to come out and sit there for lunch, okay? But it was amazing because you got to see just different age groups, just different people. You got to see capoeira, you got to see Brazilian percussion. We had a hip hop DJ and a Afrobeat DJ. We had a pianist, we had a saxophonist. I mean, it was just this amazing smorgasbord of music.
Yes.
And people stopped. They were like, what is that going on? Because it was loud. It was loud, but it was great. It was amazing. It was totally amazing.
Wow. Wow.
Absolutely.
I want, and I didn't mean to interrupt. I want to go back to that story you're talking about, the gentleman, the artist, and about him being profiled.
Yeah.
And when he did his art, and you told me how it was so profound and so emotional for him, what did you find him to, I don't know, what did you find him pulling out of himself? Did you find him feeling a release?
Oh, absolutely.
Of, you know.
Well, because when you look at him, you never think he has any ounce of Black American in him.
Okay.
Right, so there's the physical part that we all have to get over.
That's true, you don't know what's inside.
Right, and so when he was able to talk about his experience, there were so many people gasping for air about, I would have never assumed that about you. Because this gentleman, he walked in, he was cool as a breeze. I mean, he was ready to tell his story. And I commend him for that because it takes a lot of guts to do that in front of an audience, one that we didn't know.
And definitely one he didn't know.
One that he didn't know. And he was coming all the way from Lawrence, Massachusetts to Jamaica Plain that night. And he knew nothing of the area, but he saw this as a great opportunity to showcase his work and tell his story in a very intimate setting, So what we appreciated was that these young people allowed themselves to be vulnerable in front of an audience.
Yes.
And then after that, it was almost like the Brady Bunch because now they're my kids. They are amazing. They still come to all of our events, and some are going off to college. Others are pursuing art full time.
Beautiful.
But the fact that they had this opportunity is what makes it more remarkable.
That's great.
Absolutely.
That is so great. I remember when you and I first met.
Woo!
Yes.
Whew. Hopefully my hair was done then.
Oh, honey, you was looking good. I must tell you. But yeah, I remember we really didn't get a chance to talk that much because you were like running around.
I'm still running around.
I know, but you're supposed to slow down a little bit. You do know that.
Hopefully.
What is Boston Art Music Soul Festival going to bring about? What is it going to do for communities of color surrounding and within the Boston area? How do you plan to reach out to folks, to let folks know that this is happening, that we want more people, that more artists from the community, and especially young and, our up-and-coming artists. How are you working that?
I would say our method that's always seemed to work is we build organically. We do it individual by individual.
Okay.
And the reason why we do that is because we realize in Boston there's a certain kind of attitude and demeanor and behavior.
Amen.
And instead of tackling them as a group, you have to go to the individual and really get to know who they are. Because it also shapes our programming. It also shapes the look and feel of the festival.
Okay.
It's not just doing a whole bunch of marketing research. It's just like Boston is a tough market. We all know that. But I'm a firm believer that particularly around the Black and brown experience, you have to get to know them. You can't just assume because we're all connected
That
through this lovely skin tone that we all share.
the same experience.
We don't.
No, we don't.
And so talking with elders gave me a different perspective about the nostalgic feeling of how this should be. And then when it comes to young people, their needs are much different. Their attention span is much different. They're looking for things much more current, in the now. They may not be concerned about the historical part of it, but trying to balance that is what is going to shape the festival. It's not just, hey, you come here and enjoy great artists, but you need to know the history as to why Bands Fest has strategically placed itself in this area. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we don't talk about that often.
No.
And when we do, it gets archived somewhere.
True. Very true.
And the other thing is my team and I, we go to a lot of different events and we just sit and observe. The good, the bad, the ugly, what moves people. Is it the music? Is it the food? Is it the location? Okay. Is it the host? Is it the venue?
Venue, yep.
Timing is everything, as we know. It's if we were to do Bands Fest in October, it would never happen because cold weather does not sit well with us, period. But June makes sense, right? Because there's this historical celebration about how the month of June has become Black Music Appreciation Month, and that Boston needs to be on the bandwagon for that.
Now, when did this come about?
Oh.
I didn't. I'm hearing this for the very first time.
So, in addition to being inspired by my parents and my brother and the city, I went to Temple University as an undergrad in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And there's this wonderful woman there named Diana Williams. And she's a publicist, she's a PR coach, you name it. But she's also the contributor behind the fact of Black Music Appreciation Month.
Well, we're going to talk more about that.
Sure.
And we're going to take a short break.
Absolutely.
And I definitely want to come back because I never knew that.
All right.
We're going to have a short break here. Good afternoon and welcome back to Artists of Color. I am Elaine Hall-Corbin, your host, and this afternoon my guest is Catherine Morris, CEO, I say, and founder of Boston Art Music Soul Festival. Catherine, hey.
Hey.
You know, girl, we've been at it for a minute.
Absolutely.
We've been at it for a minute.
Yeah.
And we were talking about history.
Absolutely.
And how things get going, and how you came up with this beautiful, beautiful idea. I think it is the most wonderful thing to bring art and culture and even history together.
Absolutely.
Because when you think about it, it all comes under one umbrella.
It does.
You know, our culture, our music is our culture, our history is our culture. And it all needs to come together. And for you to come up with that in such a way that brings it all together under one, I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
So tell me about this.
All right, so this past February, we did a partnership with Arts Emerson and Outside the Box Agency to do a fundraiser called Boston Unplugged. And we were the Bands Fest was the beneficiary of this event.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
It featured about 15 musicians.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was one of the baddest shows I'd ever seen. And so this photo has 2 members of our team, actually. Because we not only have our creative team, but they're also musicians.
You got
and
musicians
artists.
in there.
Everyone works.
See? Everybody's behind the scenes doing something, and everybody's part of the team.
So here we have the gentleman on the mic. His name is Cliff Notes. He is one of the co-founders of an organization called Hipstery. And the gentleman on the sax is Timothy Hall, who sits on my creative team.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, where was this?
Was
this at Emerson?
This was at the Paramount, yes.
This was at the Paramount.
At the Jackie Black Box Theater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
We've been housed there for about 3 years now, so it's always good to just sit back and not have to produce and see how another show's done.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Absolutely.
Just an idea, who were some of the other artists musicians that were part of this?
There was...
just a few. Just to give us an idea.
There was a young lady named Camille, and she was amazing. She was like alternative rock, soul, you name it. We had Marcella Cruz, who's I believe from Lowell. She was there as well. Oh yeah, she's amazing. And we had a couple of poets, but there are so many names.
That's all right. Hey, we're doing good. I got a good idea.
Yeah, it was.
I got a good idea.
It was.
So who were these?
Well, actually, this was a different show.
Oh, really? This wasn't.
We do a lot of shows.
I know that.
This was actually our most recent one at the Black Box Theater at Arts Emerson, and this was Black Box Sound. And it is a series that Arts Emerson puts on, but they hire community curators to come in and do shows.
And you were one of them.
Oh, but this show, Elaine, when I tell you, I could not have paid for what happened at the end.
Uh-oh.
So this show had this show had a group from Chicago, which are 2 of those folks named Sidewalk Chalk, and then this gentleman to your far left. His name is Sam Trump. He's an individual artist out of that group. He is heavily inspired by Curtis Mayfield.
What?
So he did his own individual set, and at the end, there was a Soul Train line and electric slide, and Valerie Stevens got up and danced.
Oh, Lord. Okay. I should have been there for that. I should have been there for that one.
But it was amazing.
I know it was amazing.
It was amazing. The energy was amazing. People are still talking about that show. Really? And it was June 9th of this year.
You just had it.
Just had it. Uh-huh. I know. You missed the reunion. Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. You intend to do anything like that again?
Absolutely. Actually, that group wants to come back to Boston through BAMS Fest because they got to see a side of the city they did not know.
Oh, shoot.
So that also brings me to the fact of it's not just making sure our local artists have exposure,
but bringing other artists in.
And changing the narrative of how Boston is perceived.
Thank you.
So we do that in small steps. It's not big venues, it's very small venues because we want people to feel the energy
there you go.
from the artists.
I understand.
Absolutely.
I hear that. I'd love to know. We're pushing and we're getting ready to get to 2018. What are we doing between now and June of 2018?
Oh, Elaine, do I have to tell the whole plan?
No, just a little.
Well, for us, we do take a break during the summer
Very
because
good.
we do a lot for
Yeah,
Boston.
I know you do.
But our heavy seasons tend to be in the fall and in the spring. And because the festival is debuting next year, we're doing a series of build-up events across the city. So at least for this year, we're doing 5 events between September and October.
Okay.
So the panel I told you about, the conference.
Yes.
We're also partnering with Hub Week, which is taking place at City Hall this year. And they're basically taking over the whole area and doing like this masterful thing around art, science, and technology. So BAMS has been asked to curate their 2 prominent days, Thursday and Friday.
Ooh.
And we're doing something called the Cypher on October 13th, where it will be 15 musicians, DJs, percussionists, beatboxers, Tiffany drummers, African drummers, you name it, collaborating for the first time on the spot.
October 13th.
October 13th at City Hall, free and open to the public.
I'm going to come down. I'll have to get stilts. Nobody's going to see me.
And then next year, it's really a surprise. I don't want to give too much away.
Okay, don't give me that.
But
tell me about this.
Was
this the panel?
The panel.
Okay.
This was the panel. And when I tell you that there were more women in that audience,
I'm sure there were.
Because this panel was attractive. That was not my intention.
I know it wasn't.
But they had so much to say. And I felt like it was very important to get, an actor, a poet, a filmmaker, a music producer, a graffiti writer, and a break dancer. Literally all on one panel. And literally some of them didn't even know each other.
I believe it.
But their experience was rather similar.
Okay, there you go. The experience.
The experience. But also what came out of this was a brotherhood that I could have never imagined. And they had only met 45 minutes prior to that event.
See?
But, we had food, we had music.
Oh, damn.
And I
believe that's what brought everybody together.
Absolutely.
And it did.
They convened on their own, and now it's like a big, fraternity brotherhood sometimes.
There you go. They said, oh, yeah, hey, brother, we know, yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you find that this panel, which brought out a group of women in the audience all over the place, did you find it to be the opposite when you had the women?
Actually, no. It was more women in the audience.
Really?
Yeah. And what was interesting about that panel was it was more diverse in age. So you had folks like Danielle LaGrosse Georges. You had this young lady named Carolyn Malachi, Obehi Janice. Yep. Cynthia B. Sellers was there. Lamerty Frazier was on that panel. So when you talk about diversity in age and experience, but what was so interesting was, again, the shared camaraderie around the difficulty of being a black woman or woman of color in a city that doesn't necessarily want to welcome you when it comes to your art. Right. But it'll commercialize or
in a minute
or off your work, but they never consider the actual experience that black women go through. Exactly. And so this panel really provided that perspective. And so we had a much more diverse group of women in the audience in terms of race and background and ethnicity. There was a few men. I would love to see more men at this kind of panel, but I understand why there were more women at this women panel because of the fact of
the experience.
The experience, absolutely.
It's always the experience, because you find that, to me, like this. Like I said, I'm going to be there for this one.
You better.
When you talk about the experience, and it's always centered around the experience.
Yes.
Because the experience makes up everything. It makes up the culture. It makes up the art. It makes up the food.
Yes, it does.
Okay? It makes up the gathering all together.
Absolutely.
See, so yeah, I understand. I understand. So I do want to ask, I want to go back a little bit.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, because I had mentioned earlier when you and I were having our little break, about the how you got your team together. Where did you find? I'll tell you, when I look on your website, it looks like there's more than 6.
There's more than 6, but there's a core 6.
Okay, tell us about the core. I want to know about your core 6.
They are my rock stars. They
Go
are
ahead.
literally, without them, the vision and the mission and why I get up every day and do what I do is because of them. And it literally started with one person.
Oh.
And then they knew someone who knew someone
who knew someone.
who knew someone. But the way in which I really kind of honed down who I wanted was I watched them for a year. Okay. I wanted to see beyond their LinkedIn profile or their Facebook, like who are you as a person? Where do you go? You know, do you do the same things that every Bostonian does? Or do you push the boundaries of engagement by going to weird places and spaces that you typically wouldn't see your own there, but you're curious about why? And so that led me to this core 6 people who continue to stay and volunteer their time, by the way. They all have full-time jobs.
There you go.
But they give over 40 hours a week.
Whoa, okay.
And then some.
I need to be walking around with you. I need a core of folks.
You know why? Because for them, they're invested. They're invested in the events that we do, the programming, the connections. For them, there's always some type of benefit beyond just we're having this festival, even though that is the exciting part of it.
Right.
But for some people, they've gotten a great letter of recommendation of had better jobs because of their volunteering with us.
With you.
For other folks who sit on my team, we've made them more bookable. So it's not just them being booked for a musician gig. Now it's you can be a host, you can write an article, you can go to this conference, because people are coming through Bands Fest and realizing, hey, you have a really good roster of people. Who do you think would be great for this?
For this. There
And we
you
make
go.
our recommendations.
Okay.
So my team, when I tell you, they're family, and when you come to a Bands Fest event, guaranteed you're going to get a hug, because we're huggers.
Uh-oh. Okay, I like huggers. You know I like huggers.
But also for us, for anyone who's ever been to a Bands Fest show, I always bring up my team at the end of the show, because without them, this doesn't happen at all. So my team, they're crazy, they're creative, they're dedicated, they're phenomenal, but they're focused. And it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that with volunteers, but they're truly
really
focused. Yeah. Wow. Absolutely.
Okay. I like that part. I like that part. When you started BAMS and you put it together, what was the core? What was your value system?
The thing that really mattered to me was making sure that we're preserving the culture, the history, the legacy, and the future of our city when it comes to music, when it comes to food, when it comes to conversation. And making sure that we're very genuine in how we treat people. Okay. I feel like we don't do that often. I feel like we network first.
Yes,
and get that all out the way. For me, I want to get to know you. If you have a dog, a cat, if we're actually related somewhere, because that's going to be more impactful of how I maneuver, how my team maneuvers around the city, and how we do events. Okay. But the other thing that's really important to me is ensuring that we are being genuine with our action. That if we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And that if we're not going to do it, we're going to figure out why we didn't do it and then correct that action. Period.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Whoa. There was, it's not up anymore, but there was a picture of a young lady, I guess she was singing. And we're going for a break.
Okay.
Welcome back to Artists of Color. I'm Elaine Hall-Corbin, your host, and my guest today is Catherine Morris from Boston Art Music Soul Festival.
Woo!
Catherine, we're back.
We're back.
How are you?
I'm good. This is good.
Are we managing this?
We are managing this very well.
Very good, very good. We were just talking, and I asked you about this young lady. Tell me.
This is, for Soul's Woman, we brought a young lady from D.C. Her name is Carolyn Malachi. She is the granddaughter of jazz musician legend John Malachi.
I know that name.
And she had never been to Boston, number one.
Uh-oh.
Oh, well, you know, I try to do different things.
You just bring them out, don't you?
Absolutely. But I've always been a fan of her work. Her work is amazing. And when I tell you, very inspirational. She uses her music to empower young girls, particularly to accept and believe in and power through arts and mathematics and engineering technology. She is a musician nerd to some degree.
That sounds good to me.
But she had this wonderful album that was debuting for the first time in Boston, and Bands Fest was chosen to have her. And again, one of those situations when she performed, not only did she perform her work, but she also did tributes to Billie Holiday, to Nina Simone.
What?
Now, she's probably under 30, but she wanted to show that she does her homework.
There you go.
She clearly does her homework. And when I tell you, she had a live band.
Oh,
now,
shoot.
this band was assembled in 3 days from Boston.
From Boston?
From Boston. And when I tell you that she took her time in working with them, these were students also that were her band, by the way.
Whoa.
Oh, yeah, I tell you, it's always with a twist.
Yes, it is. And this was the twist.
And this was the twist. And when I tell you that she just gave everyone their moment, and she led it as if she was conducting an orchestra.
My girl did
her
thing.
music is amazing. She has this one song that truly became my anthem for a year called All Right. And it was really just accepting the fact of you're not going to get everything perfect.
Thank you.
But be able to do what you're doing with tact, with commitment, with passion, and make sure that you're putting your full heart into it. And everything will be all right after that.
And so there's where the all right came from. Wow.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Mm-hmm. Now I got to find the album. So you get.
You do.
I want it. I want it. I want it.
I'll send you a few videos because her videos are amazing.
Okay, great. Wow. It's like amazing, amazing, amazing what you've put together.
Absolutely.
And what you continue to put together.
Shared experience, that's what's at.
I hear that. Mom and dad and siblings, they must be saying, oh, we let her loose?
Yes.
Why did we let her loose?
My mother is probably the mascot of BAMS at this point. She's Mama BAMS.
Uh-oh.
Comes to every meeting, every show.
She does?
She does. She hugs everyone that walks through the door. So, yeah, she's almost like the mascot. In my team, she's Mama BAMS.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, you know, when I was looking at your website this morning, yeah, I saw this little thing on the bottom that said subscribe. Well, I want you to know I subscribed.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did.
Got that alert today.
Oh, she got it even.
Go, Elaine, I love you.
Oh, I love you too, Kat. I got to tell you.
Yes.
I think that this is going to be something. I think BAMS is just going to take over the city.
That's the goal.
I'm praying for it. I really am. Every time I see something that you're doing and I can't get there, I always say I'm going to make the next one. I'm going to make the next one. I got to make the next one. But I mean, I follow you guys, so I know what you're doing. And you always have something up that's on my Facebook page. Well, and there's this going on. I'm saying, okay.
I think we need to get back to the basics of just being informative with one another. And
I agree.
The days of community boards are gone. Everything's completely digital.
Yep.
So if there's any way that BAMS Fest can support events that are unique, that are different, that are all over the city, not just concentrated, and be able to share their information with people, that's their church that they want to go. We don't have any grudges or issues with that. We just want people to really, really explore this city and stop being stuck in their ways or being told that Boston has nothing to offer. There is plenty.
Thank you.
It's just what you're interested in. It's not racially based. It's not religious based. It's really about what are you interested in, because there's something here for you. We just have to do a better job of coming together and sharing our events or ideas and actually promoting it, and not just, well, you didn't come to my event, so I'm not going to share it. Yeah, it's not about that.
No, it's not.
You know, information.
And it really is not.
Information and knowledge is not yours to keep. You're supposed to share
Spread
it.
It's supposed to spread it.
Absolutely.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
I sincerely do. I want to, there's so much to ask, and then my mind's going,
well,
and I'm saying.
I got one for you.
Oh, good.
We did talk about briefly about June.
Black,
being
Black
Music Appreciation
yes.
Month. So how that came about was I came across an article in Huffington Post about this woman named Diana Williams. And I was an undergrad student at Temple University in Philadelphia. She's a well-known radio personality. But what was more remarkable in this article about her was that she and her ex-husband, Kenny Gamble, of the Philadelphia Sound, the Teddy Pendergrass and the Patti LaBelle's, all of that. They came together and got the African American Music Appreciation Bill passed on June 3rd, 2001. So Philly is the first city to authentically celebrate Black Music Month for 30 days. So I said, oh, well, why can't Boston do that? We have everything else. We have Juneteenth. We have film festivals, we have music shows, so why can't we make it a full 30 days?
Thank you.
So that contributed to partly my mission to make sure that at some point over time, Bands Fest, in collaboration with anyone else who's doing things in the month of June that are related to the Black and Brown experience,
there you go,
or related to artistic and cultural things, can now be a full calendar of 30 days of activity.
I love that. So
it's because of this woman and her efforts with her ex-husband to get this bill passed, signed by 2 presidents.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, we're gonna have that here. We gotta have. You know what?
Yes, ma'am.
We should take it. We should take it to City Hall.
Absolutely.
And have them declare it.
I agree with you 100%.
That's what needs to happen.
I'm holding folks accountable.
You know, we need to start talking to our reps and our city councilors and tell them, hey, this is what you need to get passed.
Absolutely.
And have it signed and make it legitimate, legal, and right out there.
Let's not just have 1 month of 28 days.
No.
Let's make it 365, but we can add June to that month.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
See?
It's history.
So that's how that came about. I never knew that. And this was back in 2001?
2001, yeah.
You mean 16
she
years?
literally drafted the bill, went to her state rep, Shaka Fatah, and went to Capitol Hill and got it passed.
Sounds good to me.
And was not playing. I'm like,
okay. Then we need to have it here.
Absolutely.
It's about that time.
Long overdue.
Very long overdue. You know, and it's funny because I'm thinking again, and I was thinking about back to the Black Arts Movement, and you on the panel, and you were talking how you had talked to young. I want to put this little bit in about young people. Young people don't know certain things.
You know.
And you were saying how we need to bring that history to our young people, because when you were saying how you had talked to some young people and they had mentioned the name Elma Lewis.
Elma Lewis.
Had no idea who she was.
I remember making the comparison that you have to make history cool and relative to young folks.
Exactly.
So I remember saying that when I was talking to these particular young folks about Elma Lewis, I said she's like the Beyonce of our times, you know. When you're talking about using her status to shift the narrative.
And didn't she?
And engage people. There's similarities and obviously there's differences, but it was something where folks were like, oh, that actually makes sense. Now I want to learn more about Elma Lewis.
There you go.
The relativity of that is what we have to start doing when it comes to history, because it can get very lengthy. It's almost like, where do you start in Black history, because it's so rich.
And it's so long.
It
it's
is.
so vast.
And so for me, I feel like in order to engage young people, you have to make history relative.
Okay.
And whether that's through a phone app or some type of talent show or a panel discussion, they're going to be interested, but they have to be able to identify folks that are currently in their library.
Yes.
Or currently a part of their life or their culture.
Recently. I'm trying to remember now if it was before or after. Oh, and by the way, my out there audience, Miss Catherine Morris and I both we're given the Community Engagement Awards from Northeastern University this past May.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was wonderful, because when I looked up and I saw Catherine, I said, "You too?"
Yes, we made it.
We made it, girl. We made it. And please. And the reason I'm mentioning that is right after that, there was the opening of the Black History Lower Roxbury exhibit at the, the Northeastern's Black History organization that they have, and it was done there. So now they have a whole big gallery of history on Black folks in Lower Roxbury from way back in the 30s and the 40s.
Let me find out.
Yes, they do.
All right, road trip. I love road trips.
There you go, girl. There you go. And I said, hey, that was like, I was there for the opening, and beautiful. That was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think we have enough archival material to talk about different aspects of art. Yeah, I mean, even for us, when we're trying to explore different genres of music to present at Bands Fest, our focus right now in the first 3 years is R&B, funk, soul, a cappella, and spoken word.
Oh, all right. No
so
jazz?
That's the basis.
No jazz?
We'll add jazz eventually.
Add jazz.
Eventually we'll add jazz. But fusion of jazz.
We'll that sounds good. Well, Catherine Morris, it's been wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Love you.
Love you too, babe. And you will be back.
Yes, ma'am.
Keep in touch, everybody, for Boston Art Music Soul Festival coming in 2018. And thank you for being with us this afternoon.